Well, it's Thursday, April 13th. I'm headed down to the seaplane dock now to get the airplane ready for the first flight of the season. Well, it's not really the first flight of the season, it's the first official flight of the season. I did take the airplane out for a little spin just around the patch on March 31st when we moved the airplane out of the hangar and put it on the ramp. But did my 3 takeoffs and landings for currency. But this is the first official flight. Gonna go take the fish and game biologist down to Ernest Sound to look for herring spawn, look for herring. I'll get down here on the dock and get parked and then go get the airplane pre-flighted and ready to go. Didn't expect Scott to be down here, but I just saw the beaver fly over, headed out. So he didn't expect me to be down here, so he's parked kind of in the driveway, in the dock here a little bit, so I can't back all the way up. But that's fine. We make it work, no problems. Well, this is the hangar where I kept the airplane all winter, backed in there. That was really nice. Scott has a beaver, Petersburg Flying Service. He's got a beaver, and he had to take it down to British Columbia and have some major work done on it, some inspections and stuff done on it. So it was gone most of the winter, and he let me keep the cub in there, which worked out fine considering the way things happened with Judy's broken leg and other things. He didn't get the chance to get the airplane home, so that was nice having it in here. I didn't have to worry about it. So the forecast yesterday was for snow, and it did snow a little bit. We got a little bit of snow at our house, but it was mostly rain. Wasn't sure even if we were going to be able to fly this morning because it was foggy and still snowing and stuff a little bit this morning pretty early, but it's lifting pretty good now. Pretty nice here. And I looked at the cameras down south where they're going, and they all look really good. You can see blue sky and stuff there. See the fresh snow level on the hill, Petersburg Mountain there across the Narrows. It's about 700 feet or so with the fresh snow. So this is a friend's hangar here. He's got his airplane in that, a home-built airplane, but he had the pilings on here rotted off and fell off here a year or so ago, so they've got a barge in here with a crane on it now, and they just put the pilings back in there for it. So well, there's the cub sitting there in its usual position. Well, the first thing I've got to do, I got to pre-flight it, make sure everything's ready to go. Nothing fell off while it's been sitting here. I was worrying about it because sea lion was hauling out right there, just the other side of where that red tower is, and they were rolling around there. last fall. That's why I put the airplane in the hangar. But it turned out okay. They haven't shown up back here yet. So anyway, it was forecast to snow overnight, yesterday and today, this morning. So I came down yesterday and put the wing covers on the airplane. So that's the first thing I've got to do, is take the wing covers off, and then we'll do a regular pre-flight. I don't keep the wing covers on most of the time. The wind will just eat those up, tear them up, in the sun, of course, and stuff. But if it's this time of the year, I have them to put on in case we get frost or snow. You can see they're nylon wing covers. They've got some mesh here on the end of it so the water doesn't build up in there. So a lot of times with wing covers, you get water, ice build up in those and freeze and make a mess. So you just got bungees on them and tennis balls on them and little loops and to hold them on. So anyway, I'll get that off and finish pre-flight in the airplane, pump the floats out, check everything out, and then start it up and warm it up. And once I check everything out, then we'll push it in the water and take it over to the dock. I checked the airplane over on the front end of it pretty good. Of course, took the wing covers off, checked the wings out, took the control locks off, drained the fuel sumps. There's drains on the bottom end of the fuel tank so you can check for water and contaminants in the fuel. And I checked that. There's a gas collator on the firewall. It's the final collection point before it goes into the carburetor. Pumped the floats or checked the floats for water. There was no water in them on the front end of it. And then pulled the engine through a dozen times. That does a couple things. It makes sure that the engine's got compression, and then it also gets the oil started to flow through it before I started. And then I checked inside the engine compartment, make sure everything was copacetic in there, oil level was right, and there's nothing damaged in there that I could see. No bird's nest inside the engine cowling or anything. Well, I got the engine started. I'll let it warm up for a little while I walk those wing covers back to the pickup and put them away. Then I'll come back and do an engine run-up. I'll run it up to about 1,500 RPM, 1,700 RPM, and do a mag check on it and a carburetor heat check on it. And then we'll shut it down, push it into the water and turn it around, and then I'll inspect the tail. I got the airplane pushed in the water, turned around and tailed up on the ramp, and just finished the pre-flight on it. Now the Cub on wheels is pretty low to the ground, and it's pretty easy to check things like the wings and the ailerons and flaps, things like that. But on floats it sticks up in the air so far you can't really get a good look at it. Once I get it in the water, then stand on the dock, then I can go over the wings pretty good and check those out. And the tail sticks out over the water, so you can't even do anything with it. It's pretty important to check the tail out because, like I said, it sticks out over the water, and boats do come in here and stuff like that, and it could get hit by a boat and damaged. Well, you'd think everything would be good on it because it's set in the hangar all winter, but you can still get hangar rash, ladder fall on it, different things like that can happen. So it's good to go over the whole thing, check it out, check that tail out and the bell crank in there for the horizontal stabilizer, and make sure the elevator's attached and the flying wires are tight and everything, and the rudder works, the pivots all work and stuff. And then I gotta check the water rudder cables to make sure they haven't come out of the pulleys or anything. They're still routed correctly and all of that. The water rudders work as the way they should. And the other thing I gotta do is pump out the float compartments here. The rear float compartments, when it's up on the ramp, the water, any water in them would be run away from where the float pump outs are. So it doesn't do any good to check them if it's on the ramp, but once it gets here level, then any water in them will run forward. And those two rear ones are probably the most important ones to check. They affect the CG. You get those full of water and the airplane is aft CG, which is really dangerous. Even though the airplane is up on the ramp and out of the water, they still get boat wakes and stuff coming over them and could get damaged by a boat or something. But I've had mine damaged by an iceberg one time that went through here and got washed up, tore up one of my floats. Anyway, you got to look for all of that stuff. And the reason I run the engine up and warm it up here on the ramp, there's two reasons for that. One reason is that the propeller is close to the water, and it doesn't matter how close it is, it's still going around. It forms a vortex over the water and pulls water into the propeller, which causes the propeller to erode. So we don't want to let it sit there in a static position for very long and run. And the other reason is make sure that the engine's running properly, because if I get it in the water and it's not running right, then I'll never get it back up on the ramp again. It won't have enough power to come up on the ramp. And I have to warm the engine up enough where it runs smoothly so it'll run back up on the ramp and whatnot. Now I still will warm it up some more before we take off, for takeoff and everything, to get all the temperatures stabilized. And that's good for a start. I know the engine is in good shape, it's going to run properly, and everything else is good. So I'll go ahead and untie it now and taxi over to the other dock over there, and I think I'll put some gasoline in it. I probably got enough. I've got the belly tank is a little over half full, but I always have a little more rather than a little less. Alright, we're taxiing out here, doing our warm-up. Got Tom in the back seat. We just took off from Petersburg, climbed out to about 900 feet, took off to the east, made a 180-degree turn back to the west, and now we're turning to the south down Wrangell Narrows. That's Petersburg on the left side of the airplane, Petersburg Airport there just on the edge of the screen, Petersburg proper underneath the wing, and we're headed by Scow Bay. On the right side is Kupreanof. There's the city village of Kupreanof and the island of Kupreanof, and on the left is Petersburg at, it's the island of Mitkov, and this is the Wrangell Narrows that we're headed down now. The Wrangell Narrows takes a hard right here, and this is Blind Slough. It almost bisects Mitkov Island down here on the south end. It makes a nice pass to go through. We're going to head through that to get through to the south end of the island and further south. It's a little fuzzy going through here today, but it's not too bad. It seems like this is a spot where it always gets fuzzy through here whenever the weather's bad, but it's passable. Now we're coming out on the south end of Blind Slough. This is Blind Slough on one side and Blind Slough on the other side, and they don't connect to each other. They're two different drainages, but it almost looks like they connect. Oh, the highway runs through here, and this is a pretty good pass to get through. So anyway, we're coming out the south end of Blind Slough on the south end of Mitkov Island, and we'll open up into Sumner Straits here just on the south end of Mitkov Island. Coming out of Blind Slough into Sumner Straits, we got Sokolov Island there just to the left, and we'll swing around. You'll be able to see Renda Island, and then the middle arm of the Stikine River, one of the three outlets of the Stikine River. That'll be right underneath the wingtip, with Mitkov Island underneath the wing itself. You come back around over Sokolov Island. As it clears up, you can see Wrangell Island over there in the distance underneath the propeller arc. That's the city of Wrangell underneath the propeller arc in Zimovia Straits. And just to the right of us is Vank Island, and look down Stikine Straits towards Clarence Straits, Zarimbo Island, and then looking up Sumner Straits, or down Sumner Straits to the west, about 65-70 miles to the Pacific Ocean. Just going by 5 Mile Island. Got Wrangell there just on the left of us, big metropolis of Wrangell. We're going to be heading down Zimovia Straits, and Warnofsky Island will be on the right side of us here for a while. Going down Zimovia Straits, it's Point Nemo there right underneath the left of the nose, and just ahead of us on the right is Anita Bay. Edelin Island is on the right, and Wrangell Island is on the left. Now we're out into Ernest Sound now, and we're going to follow along the shoreline here. This is Bronson Island, and we're just looking along the shoreline for any sign of any herring spawn, or anything like that. Straight over the nose is Vixen Inlet. Actually, to the left of the nose now is Point Eaton. And looking over towards Seward Passage and Deer Island underneath the wingtip there. We'll be seeing more of this stuff throughout the afternoon here, or the day here as we fly by, but we'll fly all this shoreline looking for herring spawn here. Looking across Clarence Straits over at Prince of Wales Island. We're at the southwestern tip of Edelin Island, actually past Onslow Island. That's looking at Lemesher Point in Union Bay, Cleveland Peninsula. We're headed over that way to follow that shoreline and look for herring and herring spawn over there right now. This is looking east into Ernest Sound, back up the way we just came. They're coming up on Point Lemesher right now. Clarence Straits is on the right side, and this is Union Bay here just to the left of us. Black Bear Creek is up straight ahead, and we fly this quite a bit in the summertime for salmon. Right there in that little notch lagoon right there just off to the right is a little village called Myers Chuck. And then Clarence Straits there, of course, that heads right south. I think it's about 40-50 miles from there out into the Pacific Ocean. Ketchikan is down that way, kind of on the left side of that. It's kind of around the corner up there, just on the right. And of course, Prince of Wales Island is off on the left. So we flew past Lemesher Point, through Union Bay and around Union Point, Vixen Harbor, and nothing so far. This is one of the areas that they've spawned pretty frequently. We're going to head into Vixen Inlet now and circle around here. There's reefs over there on the left-hand side that have a few seagulls and stuff on them, and when we got over there we could see a couple of sea lions, but that's one of the spots herring like to spawn in, but there was really no activity there yet. So anyway, we're going to fly up here at Vixen and then follow this around and continue along this shoreline. They say this is the Cleveland Peninsula. This is a long peninsula off of the mainland of North America, and not just one of the islands up here. Well, we've looked at all the usual haunts where the herring usually spawn, down along the Cleveland Peninsula and the lower end of Edelin Island. We're headed up Seward Passage right now with Deer Island here on the left and the Cleveland Peninsula on the right. And we're going to swing around Deer Island here a little bit. Sometimes the fish come in here and spawn along this shoreline too. Anyway, we're going to take a quick look at this, or a slow look at this, or however you determine a Super Cub's speed is. We're looking at the eastern end of Ernest Sound now. That's Point Warren underneath the wingtip, and Wrangell Island there just ahead of the wing edge, coming up on Wrangell Island. We haven't really seen anything yet. We're going to head up Zimovia Straits back to the north, see if we see anything up in here. My boss thinks that sometimes they show up in here. So anyway, this is the way back home, so that's the way we're going. That's looking back down Ernest Sound the other way. That's the shoreline there underneath the wingtip that we flew first by Bronson Island, and then looking all the way out to the west of Ernest Sound. We're about halfway up Zimovia Straits now, run out of the sunshine. It's Anita Bay there to the left, and Point Nemo up ahead of us there on the right. Oh, we're following this shoreline along, looking for herring still, and we'll run around along by Wrangell and just keep looking until we run out of places to look. Well, I guess we run out of places to look, so we're by Wrangell now. We're headed back over towards Blind Slough, towards Mitkoff Island, and headed back to Petersburg. They're going across Sumner Straits right now. Anyway, that was enough. That was fun. Over through the pass in Blind Slough now on the Petersburg side. That's a fish hatchery down there on the Blind Slough. It's a Crystal Lake fish hatchery. The water comes down out of Crystal Lake, and there's a power plant right there. And that's a fish hatchery that right now they primarily raise king salmon. And that's looking north up the Blind Slough outlet, headed towards Wrangell Narrows again, Petersburg. Here we are. The airplane's all tied down, put away after the first flight of the season. Everything went good without a hitch. Next flight is maybe Monday. Anyway, that was fun. Been a while since I've done that. I'll go home and get rested up, maybe get something else done. A little chilly out here, it's wet again, and wind's blowing a little bit, so it's a little bit cool. But it's not snowing.